Hello everyone, what is up? It is me, AlbyMTG, and today I'll be bringing you guys 10 more uncommon cards that could benefit heavily from a reprint. You guys really enjoyed the first episode where I went over 10 uncommons that needed a reprint. You guys wanted a second one according to the comment section, so I'm giving you guys here a second one. And I'm willing to do a third one as well if you guys want to see it. Of course, I don't want my content to just become like solely one thing over and over again, but you guys really seem to be enjoying this, especially with how the like to dislike ratio and the views and that kind of stuff on the last video went. You guys seem to be enjoying these, so if you guys want to see another one, of course, just go ahead and let me know down below in the comments, and we'll do part 3. I think I'll probably stop after part 3, at least for a while, until we can see what cards actually do get reprinted, but for the time being, let me know down below in the comments if you guys want to see a part 3 for these uncommons. The first one we're going to start off with here today is Undead War Chief. The reason I actually found out about Undead War Chief being so expensive, $5.61, was I went to buy my friend, yesterday was his birthday, and so as part of his birthday present I wanted to get him a cool older Magic pack, and so we got him Scourge, and so I looked up the prices of Scourge cards, just see what he could end up pulling. He ended up pulling a Decree of Silence, which was a fairly good rare to pull, goes infinite with Solemnity, countering all of your opponent's spells, which is pretty cool. So that was the rare he got out of that. But when I was looking it up, I noticed that there were some money uncommons, which was really what made me want to buy in the Scourge pack, just because it wasn't so focused on only getting a good rare. There was some money in the uncommon slot as well, which is why I went with Scourge. And Undead War Chief is the second most expensive card in the set at $5.61, and it is currently an uncommon. I'm sure if it was to be reprinted, it would probably go up to a rare, because that's something that Wizards tends to do with cards that are above their price tag for an uncommon. And this is actually just one of the most expensive cards in like a zombie-themed deck, if it's like Zombie EDH, Zombie Canadian Highlander, those kind of decks. Undead War Chief is one of the cards that goes into that deck that's one of the more expensive cards. Zombie spells you play cost 1 less to play, and then zombies you control get +2/+1, so he is a 3/2 himself. This 1/1 here can be deceiving, because he does include himself here in this buff. Doesn't really see any constructed play, as you guys can see here, no recent deck list, but really where he shines again is like the Canadian Highlander, the EDH Commander, like 100 card formats where people try and build the zombie decks. They obviously need Undead War Chief in their decks, because it does exactly what you want Undead War Chief to do. It makes your spells cost less if they're a zombie, and it buffs them if they're a zombie, which is super sweet. And I think that a card to really compare to this is something like Goblin Chieftain. If we take a look at Goblin Chieftain, which is in the same cycle as the Undead War Chief, or no, I'm not thinking of, is it Goblin War Chief? Is that what I'm thinking of? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Never mind, it's not Goblin Chieftain. This card actually ended up getting reprinted in Dominaria, and so now it's only 25 cents. But if we go ahead and take a look here at the Scourge pricing, if it'll load for us, you can see that this card too used to be a fairly expensive card here too, this card being around $3 in this point in time. And then as goblins started to become slightly less relevant, and in some of the Eternal formats like Legacy and Vintage, it used to be a really strong deck, but not so much anymore. Goblin War Chief went down in price a little bit, but you can see even this is $1.50, the Scourge version. And so this entire cycle of War Chiefs is just a very strong cycle when it comes to the tribal decks that they're part of. And so another reprint of Undead War Chief is just a great way to get copies of this card into the hands of the Commander players hoping to build some zombie decks. Next card we have here is Reliquary Tower, and of course Reliquary Tower is basically an auto-include in most EDH Commander decks. I'm assuming it's just an auto-include in all of them, but I'm sure somebody knows some deck where it's just incorrect to play Reliquary Tower. But most decks will end up running this, and you can see that the price just continuously goes up over time. It was down here at about $1, and now it's all the way up to about $5-6. And notably, this card just constantly gets reprinted already. You can see it here in Commander 14, Commander 15, Commander 16. Notably not in Commander 17, which is kind of interesting, but might end up making its return here for Commander 18. And so this card, of course, could benefit from a reprint. It's likely to get a reprint, but nonetheless, because it's played in essentially every single Commander deck, the price tag is up there, and the reprint could just definitely help more quantity of this card get into the hands of the EDH Commander community. Next card we're going to take a look at here is Battle Screech. This is an uncommon from Judgment. You put 2 1/1 white bird creature tokens with flying into play, and then you tap 3 untapped white creatures you control. The reason this card is so expensive, being a $6 36-cent card, you can see down here in this time period you used to be able to get them for like 30 cents, 40 cents. It was just a bulk uncommon. And then, as we talked about in, I think, the commons video, around this Oath of the Gatewatch time, that's when Pauper cards really began to spike, and this card is in fact a common in the Pauper community because it was printed as a common in the Vintage Masters Online only set, and so it is technically a common in there, so it is legal in Pauper, despite it never being actually printed as a common in paper. This, of course, makes the quantities of Battle Screech, because most decks will run a 3 to a 4 of the Battle Screech, maybe sometimes just a 2 of, but these cards are really, really strong in Pauper, and the fact that it's an uncommon only ever printed once means the quantity is just not there to meet the demand right now, which means that the price is going to increase. And you can see here around Rivals of Ixalan, there was another bit of an increase in Pauper cards during like this Ixalan to Masters 25 time period. There was a bit of a spike as well. In most Pauper cards. Battle Screech just ended up being one of those cards, going from around $3.30 up to about $6 here. So of course, if we could get this reprinted, possibly at the common slot, since it is legal in Pauper, that would be absolutely fantastic. Of course, I don't expect that. I would expect to see it, if it is reprinted at some point, I would expect to see it as an uncommon again. But I think that should still be fine. Getting more copies of this card into the hands of Pauper players is exactly what we want, and so it could definitely benefit from a reprint. Next card we're going to take a look at here is Bloodbraid Elf. Bloodbraid Elf was recently banned in Modern, and then recently got unbanned. So you can see the price spike here. I bet you can guess when it was unbanned. So you can see it was pretty much just around like a $2 card up and through here, and then the unban happens, and then you're looking at a $7 to $8 Bloodbraid Elf. Of course, Bloodbraid Elf is an extremely strong card. If we come down here and look at the recent decks playing it, these are all modern decks: Jund, Titan Shift, Green-Red Land Destruction, Red-Green Eldrazi, Traverse Death Shadow, just all these decks that want to just use some value cards on their opponents. Of course, Bloodbraid Elf is always a 2-for-1, which is super, super nice. And so a bunch of decks are running it, really need to get some hands into the copies, or need to get some copies into the hands of players. Notably, it was printed a couple times here. You can see Commander 2016, Eternal Masters, as well as the 2 Plane Chase here, Plane Chase 2012 and Plane Chase Anthology. You can find a promo version as well, the FNM promo version. So there are some copies out there in the world, so it's not like this is just a super limited supply card. It's just that this card is super, super strong, and is seeing a lot of play in top modern decks right now. And so, of course, a reprint to get these into the hands of more players. I feel like I'm saying that for every card, but it's just true. You really want to get these cards out into the hands of players so that people are able to use them and get the advantage in their decks by being able to use these powerful cards. Next card we're going to take a look at here is Path to Exile. In my last Uncommons video, I used Eternal Witness, and Eternal Witness was printed like 7 times. I didn't include Path to Exile because I thought it was printed too many times, but Chris Treyer, of course, if you're watching this, shout out to you. He put it out in the comments that Path really should have been on the list. I gave him the reasoning that Path has been printed like 1,000,000 times, and by 1,000,000 times I mean 11. You can get this card in 11 different ways here, not counting the foil versions. But anyway, I didn't include it in the list because I felt like it was printed too many times. He pointed out Eternal Witness, which has also been printed like 1,000,000 times as well. So shout out to him for telling me the Path really needed to be on the list, and that my reasoning was just basically incorrect. So Path to Exile definitely needs to be reprinted. Gets reprinted a lot, but it's a very powerful card, and similar to something like Bloodbraid Elf, the price tag is because of it being a relatively powerful card, which you're going to see later on in the video. There are some more cards that are just relatively powerful, and that's why they're holding up the price tag. And so just any opportunity they have to print Path to Exile, again, get it into the hands of players, absolutely fantastic. And also Path to Exile kind of being the Thanos vanishing away kind of thing here before Avengers even came out. Next card we're going to take a look at here is Chanders Edict. Chanders Edict, similar to Battle Screech here, how we talked about Battle Screech never being printed as a common in paper, but being legal in Pauper because of Vintage Masters. Chanders Edict is the exact same way, and the only time it was ever printed in paper was as an F&M promo in Torment, and then also a From the Vault version. So again, not quite as limited supply as Battle Screech, but this card does see more play than Battle Screech. You can see here all of these decks that's being played in are Pauper. Basically, every black deck runs it. It usually varies on the number of copies in the deck, but most black decks tend to be more control-ish in the Pauper format, and a card like Chanders Edict is just very, very strong for those control strategies. Right now, boasting a $10 price tag, and you can see at some point between Rivals of Ixalan and Masters 25, it was actually up around the $13 mark, which is just a little bit crazy. So Chanders Edict could definitely benefit from another reprint, again similar to Battle Screech. We're just trying to, because it was only printed as an uncommon in paper, you really want to go ahead and get more copies out there. Next card we're going to take a look at here is Eldrazi Temple. Eldrazi Temple, again, posting a $10 price tag, same as Chanders Edict, but this one's seeing a ton of modern play instead of Pauper play. Here, if you take a look at this, it's also seeing some Legacy and Vintage play as well. But all of the lists that it's being played in are the Eldrazi decks, and notably, all of the Eldrazi lists want 4 Eldrazi Temples. I would be extremely surprised if you showed me a winning Eldrazi list that was running less than 4 Eldrazi Temple. If we go ahead and just take a look at something like Red-Green Eldrazi, is a deck that I really like in Modern right now. I know I have a few friends that play it, and you can see here it's running 4 Eldrazi Temples, so $40 for a playset of a card that you need to run a 4 of, and then notably you of course need your 3 Matter Reshaper or 4 Matter Reshaper, 4 Thought-Knot Seer, 4 Reality Smasher for those kind of decks as well, but those are all rares. Eldrazi Temple of course being a common though. Originally it was printed as a rare. If we go down here to Rise of Eldrazi, we can see that it was printed as a rare before, and then notably in Modern Masters 2015, as well as the dual deck Zendikar versus Eldrazi, it was downshifted to an uncommon. Wizards downshifted it, which is super nice, and so it meant that I was able to put it on this list. So Eldrazi Temple, again, another card that needs a reprint. $10 price tag here for this uncommon that is a 4 of in every single Eldrazi deck. Next card we're going to take a look at here is Shattering Spree. This is a card that if you would have told me was $14 to $15, I would have thought that you were lying to me. I don't see Shattering Spree a ton, but it is a very strong sideboard card. You can see here it was around the $3 mark and then just slowly continued to creep up. Big jump here between Hour of Devastation and Ixalan, where it went from about $6.50 up to about $11, $12, and then has just continued to kind of go up ever since. So right now it's sitting at about $14.50 for just kind of a sideboard card, which again, I think we talked about this when I talked about Relic of Progenitus and some of the other sideboard cards in my commons video. You don't really want to be paying that much money for sideboard cards, especially for something like Shattering Spree. Shattering Spree doesn't see quite enough play to really boast the $15 tag. It's mainly just the fact that it's only ever been printed once, and that was here in Guild Pact. Shattering Spree being a very good card, very strong in Vintage and Legacy as well. Here you can see Vintage, Legacy, and Vintage once again, because a lot of people in those formats are playing things like the Moxen, playing Soul Ring, all these kind of good artifacts in those formats. So it's much better in those, but in Modern you only see it as a sideboard card against Affinity, and a lot of times you don't even see it as a sideboard card in Affinity that often anymore, because people in the red decks, if you look at something like Burn, for example, Burn just plays Destructive Revelry in that spot over Shattering Spree. If we look at something like, what's another red deck, like a Goblins deck would probably also just play some sort of Smash to Smithereens, possibly, instead of Shattering Spree. So it's not something that we're seeing a ton of in Modern, so the $15 price tag does really surprise me, and I think that a reprint could definitely bring this back down below like the $5 price tag mark. And really, I think one of the things that's holding this back the most is the fact that it has a keyword on it, which is the replicatability. But we are returning to Ravnica, Guild Pact being part of the original Ravnica the original Ravnica set being Ravnica Dissension and Guild Pact, so it is possible that the replicate mechanic would return, and that we might actually see Shattering Spree reprinted in these next Ravnica sets that are coming out in Standard. That would be a super good idea for them to reprint it in there. It'd be a nice way for them to sell some packs and put in some value at the uncommon slot, which I think would be super cool. So on this list we have number 8, Shattering Spree. Number 9, we're going to take a look at Cabal Coffers. This card was only ever printed twice in paper, being once in Torment, and then one more time as an FNM promo. We'll go ahead and take a look at the FNM promo here. You can see price tag of around $50 here. This price graph is a little strange, going around like $36, $37 here up to about $45, and then at some point randomly hitting $125 for a couple of days, but then coming back down to $55. I also missed Plane Chase as well, so I guess it was printed technically 3 times in paper, once in Torment, once in Plane Chase, and one is the FNM promo. Again, this is another card that sees a lot of play in EDH decks. This is essentially every black EDH deck will run this because it has the potential to create just a ton of mana if you're in the black decks. If you're playing enough swamps. In mono black, this card is absolutely disgusting. We got Cabal Stronghold being a card in Dominaria that had a bit of hype around it. It's just not quite the same as Cabal Coffers. Notably, Cabal Stronghold can tap for a colorless, which is nice, but it does require, I believe, 3 to activate instead of 2 to activate, which kind of holds back how strong it is. I think just like mono black decks would want to run both of them, but Cabal Coffers to me is just the stronger card. When it comes to those two, I think Cabal Coffers is just much stronger. You can see one mono black deck here in Legacy that was playing it. We'll go ahead and take a look at that here. And you can see this deck only running 1 Cabal Coffers, but it does run 4 Lake of the Dead, which is a very strong card as well. Being able to sacrifice a swamp and tap this to add 4 black to your mana pool, that's quite strong. And then also 21 swamps here. This one 5-0 to competitive league, but outside of that, it doesn't look like this has put up any other sort of results. And it looks like it's just running a bunch of big black creatures here. You get 4 Hymn to Torok, which is very nice. Hymn to Torok is a very powerful card that I absolutely love. And then it's running things like Grave Titan, Massacre Worm, Phyrexian Obliterator, those kind of cards. So looks like it 5-0'd one list, but then again, didn't really do anything after that. But Cabal Coffers, definitely an EDH staple in basically every single black deck, and it would be great to see this card get a reprint at some point. And the final card we're going to take a look at here today is Demonic Tutor. Most people didn't even know that this card was an uncommon. Most expected it to be a rare. And this is the card that just continues to increase in price. Again, if we go ahead and look here, we're on the revised edition right now. Notably, revised edition, $33.91. That is the cheapest version out of all of these. The Judge promo ones are like nearly $300. Of course, Alpha and Beta ones are all over $300. And then it was printed in dual deck Divine versus Demonic with alternative artwork with Liliana. We'll go ahead and take a look at that here. That was printed there, and even that is like $47 right now. So the cheapest version that we have is revised, 3rd edition here, revised. And that's still boasting a price tag of around $34. So I'm sure that if Demonic Tutor was to be reprinted, we'd be seeing it at like rare or probably mythic. This card is extremely powerful. If we go ahead and take a look at the decks it's being played in, you can see that it's only legal in Vintage, and so it sees a ton of play in Vintage. Paradoxical Outcome, Mentor, Check Pile, Inferno Oath, the list goes on and on and on. This card is extremely strong, and if you're in a black deck playing Vintage, you're going to play it. If you're in a black deck playing in like EDH, you're going to play this as well. Tutors are extremely strong in EDH. In basically any casual format, Tutors, again, just extremely powerful. Demonic Tutor might actually even be banned in Commander. I'm not 100% sure on that one, but the card is just extremely powerful, and again, $33 for this uncommon that, again, most people don't really know that it is an uncommon. Many expect it to be a rare from this older set, but it was actually, in fact, an uncommon, and so it would be very nice to see this get a reprint. Despite it being an old card, again, not on the reserved list, so the potential for a reprint is there, and I think that if we could see it in the future, that would be very nice. So once again, we will go over the 10 uncommons again here, starting off with Undead Warchief at $5.61, Reliquary Tower at about $5.90, Battle Screech at $6.36, Bloodbraid Elf at about $7, Path to Exile at about $8, Chanders Edict for $10, Eldrazi Temple for 10, Shattering Spree at around 14.50, Cabal coffers at around 29.50, and then finally Demonic Tutor with the cheapest version being close to $34 from the revised edition. So I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you guys did, of course, a like is appreciated on the video. If this is your first time watching any content from me, I try to produce daily content, so be sure to subscribe for more. Again, if you especially enjoyed this video, then a like would be appreciated. Subscription would be appreciated. Let me know down below in the comments if you guys want to see a part 3 to this video, and let me know what kind of uncommons you guys want me to talk about in that video, and we'll go ahead and do that video if you guys want to see it. With that being said, I will see you guys here tomorrow for yet another Magic the Gathering video.